Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Victor. This is Jack. This is our first video in a week of kind of a world building thought exercise where we're going to take various scenarios about what happened in World War II and if other things had happened, what could the world be like? So today is going to be what would happen if Hitler hadn't lost.
And this is not our idea of what would happen. That's going to be Thursday's video we're going to present to you. So I got a link in the description to a YouTube video that says the title is If Hitler Hadn't Lost the War.
Okay.
And so this guy had made this, and he's doing his history, and basically he makes up a scenario.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about that scenario. Victor has not seen it. You can watch it if you want. It's incredibly biased if you can stomach it.
But it's just all the propaganda just played out.
Yeah.
Over 50 years or whatever.
Yeah. But then he says, but if this had changed, then this would.
Okay.
And so we're going to do our own if this had changed in a more realistic way than I believe this guy did. But we're going to critique his right now.
Okay.
So his video starts in 1940. France has already collapsed. And now we're right at the Battle of Britain.
Okay.
So Dunkirk is the evacuation, now Battle of Britain. And basically he says in his video that Hitler's inability to resolve, quote, the British problem in 1940 was the beginning of his undoing. Because you remember when he turns east against Russia, he's still got Britain on his back door here.
Right.
So, I mean, so I would like to say here that like when he's thinking this, but I just want you to keep in mind, if Hitler had finished the British problem, had solved that problem, there would be no war.
Right.
The war would cease to exist and there would be no parties at war.
Right, but Hitler still believed that Stalin was attacking the next year.
And he was going to attack the next year. Right. And so he would have invaded him, and then that would have been a two-person war, not a world war.
Or all of Europe defending themselves,
Right. So here's his argument for the first change he's going to make.
Okay.
He says, if Hitler had greenlit the Battle of Britain on June 18th, which is the day Churchill famously told the House of Commons, the Battle of Britain has begun, rather than on July 10th, with less time to train new pilots and prepare a coordinated response, the Luftwaffe then appears over the channel as the British Expeditionary Force is still being offloaded from Dunkirk. And instead of blundering and attacking cities, the Luftwaffe attacks military targets. Now, these are his descriptions of the events, okay? So there's a lot of stuff here. He didn't blunder and attack cities. They went through a 3-phase campaign that ended up in city-to-city attack. And that was not as a military strategy. Like they had already attacked the shipping lanes, attacked the ports, attacked the airplane facilities, And so he says, instead of blundering and attacking cities, the Luftwaffe attacks military targets.
As if they just totally ignored them in real life.
Your conception of history is poor, we'll say. Okay, but the key point over here is that he wants Battle of Britain to start on June 18th as opposed to July 10th.
Like that's only a few weeks.
Yes, 20-something days before.
Okay.
So the evacuation of Dunkirk ended on June 4th.
Okay.
So June 4th, evacuation of Dunkirk is complete. He wants the Battle of Britain to start on June 18th. It actually starts on July 10th. Okay? And so why do you think after Dunkirk, Hitler waited until July 10th to start the Battle of Britain?
No idea.
He was waiting for the response to his proposal for peace. He sent a peace proposal to Britain and said, hey, I'll give back all of France,
Yeah.
And then he said, I want my colonies back in Africa. He said the Wehrmacht will support the British wherever they are in the world if they need it. And it was a great deal to peacefully end the war. But there was certain people in Britain who didn't want the war to end, say, Judea declares war on Germany, if you recall the newspaper, right?
Yep.
And so when this guy's looking at the history, he's thinking like, why didn't you press the attack? Well, if you want to take that argument, why didn't they just destroy the entire British Expeditionary Force at Dunkirk?
Yeah.
Panzers surrounding them. They're stuck on a beach. There's sailboats coming to pick people up. You have the entire Luftwaffe. You could have just bombed the beach like it was a city later in the war. Just firebomb the beach and just let the soldiers burn. You could... But they didn't. They lightly harried the boats. They never sent in the Panzer, and they let them retreat. Why? Peace plan. Peace plan. Any sensible person that says, you just let my entire army live. peace on good terms, honestly. I'll take peace.
Yeah.
But Churchill's completely and totally controlled, and he's not working in the best interest of the British people at all. And this guy has no knowledge of any of this who's making this video. And so...
Just interrupt real quick.
Yes, go for
so
it.
he sent that variation of that peace proposal many times.
Yeah. It was 20 or 2 dozen.
Okay, that's what I thought I remembered.
But each time they varied. Like before that, like after he had to take Poland, after he had captured Poland, he asked for peace. He's obviously not offering France because they haven't invaded France yet.
So just let's say there's 20 proposals. Is this like he's already sent in 18 of them? Like this is towards the end, or is he just starting the peace proposal process at the Battle of Britain time period?
No, yeah, I would say it's early.
Okay, so
I'd say like a quarter to a third if I could guess.
Okay, gotcha.
Because there's just lots of phases are going to go, and if it's going poor for him, and even later at one of the conferences, was it Stalin told Churchill, I believe, why don't you just offer him a peace plan? And Churchill said because they would accept it. That was his quote
Wow.
to Stalin. And so. Okay, so now we're going to go on this guy's scenario farther.
Okay.
So Battle of Britain has happened earlier, and the advantage is that the RAF has less time to train pilots and prepare a coordinated response. And the British Expedition Force is still being offloaded, and the Luftwaffe in this scenario remembers to attack military targets. Okay? So basically, they're going to end up taking less air losses this way, which is going to bolster their attack later on the USSR, which is going to go into his hypothetical scenario. And they're basically going to focus on the radar facilities and the airfields. They're not going to be able to see them coming, and they're going to cripple their air force, which is then going to allow them to pound the ships. And all of a sudden, it's looking really bad for Britain. In this story, Churchill makes an emergency flight to the U.S. to consult FDR, and his plane disappears.
Oh,
emergency.
That's convenient.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a stupid scenario.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what if I were like, okay, so what if Ribbentrop, he stubbed his toe and it became infected, right?
Right. He's stung by a bee.
And then he contracted a venereal. Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
We're not actually talking hypotheticals. Like, if this battle had shifted or something is an actual hypothetical. So this happens in his, And then he says with Sea Lion mounting, Sea Lion was their naval operation where they were going to invade Britain.
Okay.
But it really wasn't. It was just a psyop. That they had instruction manuals on Sea Lion, and they had these troops lined up, and they had these little construction projects going. It was all a psyop. And the British are like, they're going to come across, aren't they? They're coming across the channel. They're not. They're not actually doing any of those things. It's just a psychological operation. Could have turned into a real operation later if things had turned out different. With Sea Lion mounting, Operation Sea Lion, Lord Halifax is elected and makes a deal. Hitler asks for no land concessions. Hitler returns all the British POWs. Britain lifts the naval embargo on Germany. Hitler recalls all the U-boats. Now, here's an important point that I did not know, and this is fascinating. Every U-boat represents enough steel to build a battalion, 50 to 60 tanks.
Wow.
I'm thinking U-boat. U-boats are 220 feet long.
Wow.
They displaced 769 tons, and they were manned by 44 people. I did not know the scale of these things. And so what they're saying is one of these can build 50, 60 tanks. I don't know if that's accurate or not. That's just from this guy's video. But it's a lot of steel.
Even if it's a dozen or 20, that's a lot of things.
Right. And so then this guy's argument is in 1941 alone, Germany built 199 U-boats.
Wow.
They could have built 6,000 extra Panzer III or 4 tanks if they weren't doing that. And then also another of this deal, German trade opens by sea and it increases their overall production capacity.
Oh,
beyond what it even was, which was excellent even during the bombings. So now they have 6,000 extra Panzers. They got more pilots from the RAF because the thing with the RAF went way better, so they have more Luftwaffe pilots and planes. So in the interim period here, after they get peace with Britain, Germany quietly murders all dissenters because that's what they do in Germany apparently, moves forces to the USSR border. Now, Germany has thousands more tanks in this scenario and many more aircraft. And then in this scenario, Germany succeeds in capturing Moscow before the winter. Now, remember, what really happened is he got delayed in Greece. 6 weeks later, he started his campaign. And then he made it within sight of Moscow before they froze. And then the Russians are going to throw everything out in the winter. So in this scenario, there's no Russian winter counteroffensive. Germany now possesses winterized airports, warmer winter quarters, and a better supply network, despite having to relay the tracks with the correct gauge, because once you cross into Russia, they're a different gauge. And then also, you remember, Hitler didn't send winter weather gear to his troops because he planned for them to winter in Moscow, and he didn't want them to think there was not a possibility. Then he had to rush it to them at the last moment. This is a much better scenario for morale. So basically, at this point in our history, USSR needed time and allies to survive. But in this scenario the guy's having, they get neither. So Britain is out of the fight. So in 1941, when Italy goes Mediterranean, then Hitler doesn't need to help. Because keep in mind, remember when it's 6 weeks delayed, and I said and all that? Who are they fighting in those Mediterranean places?
Us?
It's the British.
Oh, British.
It's the British, because the British are in control of North Africa. And so it's the British they're fighting. With the British out of it, they're fighting local communities, if you know what I mean? Third world countries. So then Hitler also wouldn't have been delayed the 6 weeks. Even if he just hadn't been delayed the 6 weeks and hadn't second guessed Mussolini, and just, even if Mussolini fails in Greece, who cares? But he would have got to Moscow, you know?
Yeah.
So it would have been a great British. That's actually a good idea for ours. He just doesn't go to the Mediterranean when we propose our video. Okay, so in this scenario, Hitler wouldn't be inept at coordinating with his allies. This is painful to watch this video. I'm sorry. I made it halfway through and turned it off and said, I will never finish this video. And then I got the idea for making this video, so I watched the other half. So if you can stomach it, it's up to you. So in this scenario, Hitler wouldn't be inept at coordinating with his allies, so Japan would magically attack USSR from the east. I added the magically part.
Oh, okay.
You know, because you got to imagine you're Japan and you're embroiled in this conflict in China and this and that. You're like, our petrol reserve, now we got the embargo from the United States. They're like, let's do what Germany needs. Let's just do what Germany needs. Now, it could have worked out. Japanese are proud people.
Yeah.
Why doesn't Germany do what Japan needs? Well, they send the oil. I don't know how that would actually logistically happen. So basically, because Germany's doing so well, Japan's going to cancel Pearl Harbor and attack the USSR.
Oh.
And Germany, when they're negotiating about this, doesn't even know that they're planning Pearl Harbor in this scenario. In this scenario, the USSR appeals for Lend-Lease, but the Japanese blockade the USSR in the Pacific. Because remember, they're attacking up through the Pacific right there. So they're blockading, can't come this way. It's already hard to get them around the top because of Germany controls Norway, even in our scenario. So it's very difficult. So Japan attacks the Dutch East Indies in a coordinated, quick surprise attack, which is interesting because those are British held, and I don't know how that doesn't bring Britain into a war with them, but that's where they end up getting all the oil they need for the rest of the war. Oh. Which is interesting because if they could have done that in the first place, why attack the United States?
Yeah.
Because the problem was oil, and when they attacked, you recall when they attacked Pearl Harbor, they also attacked all the British holdings over there. Indonesia, all this different stuff, you know? Was it Indonesia? Anyways, Germany and Japan keep U.S. out of the war. Stalingrad never happens, which was the defeat of the Germans. Lend-Lease fails. USSR ends up isolated. And then in 1942, Ribbentrop, who's the foreign minister for Germany, heads to the Urals to discuss settlement with Stalin. Stalin is found dead by suicide before Ribbentrop arrives. USSR goes into a civil war, but there's nothing left. They're fighting over Siberia, basically. So that's his scenario for the war.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think besides just the random people disappearing and dying, the stuff about the U-boats was interesting. Having more tanks to go into Russia. That's interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't understand the importance of him being drawn to anything in the water. It is bad.
Yeah.
Like, do nothing in the water would be good.
Right.
Because you just can't have both. You can't have all of the land.
You're just overextending yourself.
You're overextending yourself. And there's even this one story. They had this beautiful ship that they had made, and it broke through the blockade. Oh, the blockade was the word I was looking for a second ago. And they broke through the blockade, and they're just driving around. Like, it's just wild. They're like down in South America, this big old German warship, and they're like, planes are out there looking for them, and it's wild. You know, they're trying to get repairs at a port. Pretty wild. But that's not your strategy to victory, though. You know? It's not going to go. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what happens in his scenario post-war.
Okay.
Because we're going to have a war scenario, then a post-war scenario. And so this is his post-war scenario. Germany murders everyone to the east, especially the Jews. So, yeah. It's his story, you know?
Like, so just like Poland and like how far?
Yeah, Slavs.
Okay.
All the Slavs. Nobody will ever remember Slavs existed. It's wild. So, and then they move in their colonists for the Lebensraum. Okay, so or living space. So basically, it takes 5 years to pacify the USSR, and they split it with Japan.
Oh,
So it's kind of like what was that movie, Man in the High Tower?
Man in the High Castle. Yeah.
Man in the High Castle. Yeah, it's like that, but for Russia, which is the same thing they did in Poland. That Germany and Russia did in Poland to split when Poland got defeated. Remember? Because Russia attacked a couple weeks in, and then they did a split. So okay, so he says that this is what the Germans do. You ready? They force the Slavs to be sterilized, but if you don't want to be sterilized, you can have children if your children are pressed into slavery.
Oh,
because that's how Germany did things.
100%.
This is historically really accurate so far.
Yes.
Okay. In more lenient governments, they let you have kids if you just do indentured servitude.
Yeah.
Because this is based on no facts whatsoever, just conjecture by a guy who doesn't understand history. Okay? So strict press censorship reigns in all the Germany-controlled lands. So do you know what that means? What are you not going to be able to talk about, we'll say? Some guesses.
In his story or?
No, in real life. Like, what does that mean? He just doesn't say what it means. What does it mean?
Oh, gotcha. Well, I mean, if it was Hitler's 25 points, only Germans can be...
But what I'm saying is it means they're gonna censor all the child pornography.
Oh yeah.
All interest related stuff, pharmaceutical companies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, all the stuff for the good of the people.
Yeah,
is going to be allowed.
Yeah. So here, then next is mass sterilization for parents who give birth to unhealthy children. Okay. He puts those with mental illness behind closed doors for experimentation and extermination.
Of course.
Okay.
This is like every stereotype from every like video game and anything that has to do with Germans.
He's Jewish.
Is this?
I guarantee you he's Jewish.
Gotcha.
I don't know the answer to that. But now imagine this. But my little note I put in here is, are you going for a 10% approval rating? Because he had 99 or 98.5% approval rating for the actions. So he's taking all just actions in the best interest of the people. And he's like, he's sterilizing, experimenting, you know what I mean?
Right.
Locking behind closed doors. It's like, what's your approval rating?
Right. Well, you're a fascist dictator, so it doesn't matter what your approval rating.
Oh my gosh, 50 million Slavs are murdered over the next decade. Censorship is so extreme that journalists in the U.S. don't know any of this is happening. They have technological and industrial innovation, but only because they retained the scientists that fled to the U.S. What scientists fled to the U.S.? See, they're trying to make it sound like because they lost the Jews who fled to the U.S. They're talking about Operation Paperclip.
Sure.
They're talking about, so they kept all of the Germans who were doing all of the things, and then the Germans made all the technological advances. But they're trying to make it sound like if they hadn't fled to the U.S. They fled to the U.S. because you let the communists smash them. Right. You let the communists rape all their women because you're terrible filth. Okay. Anyways, and then also he makes the argument that a rapid victory may have aided Hitler's health, because Hitler had health problems, but he was in a very, very high-stress situation. Yeah. So if it calmed down, in this scenario, I think he has him living into his 60s. So not like super long, but...
Sure.
Okay.
Because when did he die? 50s? Early 50s?
Hitler?
Yeah.
In 45, at the end of the war.
No, how old? Oh, you were saying 60s years, not his age.
I think he was born in 1890.
Okay, gotcha.
I think. So I'll put it on the screen. If I'm wrong about that.
So he was in his 50s, in the 40s.
And he hasn't lived for like another dozen years in this.
Okay.
So he does say he may have gotten older and considered attacking the U.S. because, quote, he viewed the country as a mongrel melting pot, one whose liberal values were antithetical to the Reich's core tenets, end quote. That's a Hitler quote, he says.
Okay.
What do you think?
Some of it maybe, but some of it not.
But all of it, what he's saying is true. It's a mongrel melting pot, the United States, whose liberal values are antithetical to the Reich's values, to the core tenets of the Reich. No, you can't do child trafficking in the Reich. You can't.
So he's right, but he's opposite what he's thinking.
He's right. Yeah. Because he's thinking like murdering the citizens and suppressing journalists. No, we got Snowden's hiding in Russia. In Russia right now as a whistleblower. Okay. It's just wild, you know? Okay. So there's a historian, and he's of Jewish descent, we'll say Hebrew descent, and his name is Gerhard Weinberg. He said, quote, Germany's defeat saved not only innumerable old people, handicapped individuals, and persons in mental institutions inside and outside the pre-war Third Reich, but also tens of thousands of Germany's own seriously wounded veterans from death at the hands of their own government. They imagine that you go serve Germany, come home wounded, you're an amputee or something. They're like,
off with his head. Yep.
They're insane.
Right.
They are psychopaths. They're literally having a delusional break with reality.
Yeah.
You know? It's insane. And also I put a note on here. Germany's defeat saved not only innumerable old people, right? Okay, let me tell you about the storming of Nuremberg, right? They had the party headquarters in Nuremberg, and the United States Marines had to storm this thing like it was an odd number. It was either 11 or 13 times they had to storm it. And eventually when they're storming it, they're like running up there with guns and stuff, and there's old men with pitchforks fighting them. They got no guns, they got no ammo, but the old men are so loyal to their 98% approval rating because none of these things that you're imagining are happening to them, that they're willing to just say, I gave my blood at Nuremberg. Because they're not going to kill you. They're not going to kill the trooper, you know, coming from the mongrels. No, just kidding. But do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this is the old guy that they're like,
yep.
Kill that old guy. That's what in their psych. Okay. So then also in this section, in this alternate scenario, all of the people are carted off in the night by dutiful SS officers. That's what it says in the. Okay. So in the United States, here's what happened post-war. FDR lost in 1904 to Wendell Willkie, Republican. U.S. industry didn't do as good because there was no war production. We should just had a war for that, though, because that's what he makes it sound like. Dang, there was no war. How could? Okay, 1950s isolationist policies, which the guy says like they're these insane anti-American, you know, like in his video, you know, isolationist policies. Germany was first to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles. In his scenario, U.S. develops their own shortly after. There's almost no diplomacy between U.S. and Germany. North and South America make an alliance because that's what they've got. So it's all of North and South America. Then fascist cells emerge in South America. And they even spread up to here. There's a Nazi scare. U.S., then the coalition of the Americas, outlaw Nazism. No more First Amendment. New Cold War. So he's promoting outlawing Nazism.
Right.
Political parties, no.
Because that's the answer. To be a good guy, you have to do
just
this.
become a Nazi. Nazis outlawed political parties.
That's true.
Anyways. And in their case, they're outlawing the pedophiles and communists in their scenario.
Sure.
You know, in this scenario, you're outlawing the people that are against pedophilia and communism. Okay. So, before Hitler's death in 1968, so in this scenario, he lived 13 years longer. He passes a decree that incrementally abolishes the Catholic Church, Christianity, and other religions. No one can emigrate. Religion goes underground, unchristianizing into the 1980s. Based on, you remember that section of Mein Kampf? It doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. So this is just all fantasy. You know what I mean? What if he made everyone in the country eat mud pies for breakfast? That's as fanciful as his scenario. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just make up some random thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can only wear your left shoes on your right foot on Tuesdays between 10. It's nonsense. Okay. Here's how his scenario ends. Okay? At the end of the 1990s, the internet starts to show rumors of Nazi and Japanese war crimes in the U.S. So the U.S. get to see all the Nazi and Japanese war crime, the dutiful SS officers marching healthy people off in the night or whatever they're doing. So U.S. hackers then spread the truth to Europe and Japan. Revolution. Overreaction. Russia and China start winning. Germany does a covert attack on Wall Street. The attack fails. Everybody knows that and then there's revolution and all the. It's just so stupid. The whole end of the. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. The end of
they
it. They
attacked Wall Street?
Yeah, they do it like a covert attack on Wall Street because that's the answer. And then everybody knows that it's the Germans that outs them. There's revolution in all their areas. I didn't write too much here because it's like I was taking notes on this and I'm like, I'm sorry, this just gets so stupid.
Right.
We're going to talk about this part though in opposite world. But basically, the premise here is that they can only hold on to their power. I don't know why Japan's involved in this, but let's just say Germany. Because I don't know a ton about Japan. I know some stuff, but not. But in Germany, they're like, you can only hold that 98%. It's based on their fantasies, because you can only hold the 98% favorability if they don't know about all the things you're doing. See, that's the premise. So you're killing like 94% of your citizens, right? But as long as they don't know, then the rest will vote. But that's not just true. They're just making that part up about killing 94% of the citizens. They're just making it up. So sure, if they found out that their government was just mass murdering people left and right, I agree with that premise. Their approval rating would drop significantly, you know?
Right.
But none of those things are happening. And so then the whole idea of the internet and see what would happen. Oh no, we're going to talk about what happened in Nova. Sorry, I don't even want to go there.
I hear this and it's so ridiculous, but I put myself in a mindset of if I was in high school and this was the class project to come up with this, I'd been like, yeah, that's probably what would have happened. Right. Like I would have been in on this because they're the embodiment of evil. And
right. Because they need you to repeat the lies and propaganda right back to them.
Right.
But it feels good to do so.
And even if you don't, let's say you don't believe the current story, but you don't believe the stuff that we say, and you're not sure, and you just look at this from an objective, is this really plausible? It's an insane story. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't pass the smell test at all. Yeah. You have to be totally bought into the narrative to go for something like this.
Right. And so I'd say it'd probably be easy to kill 50 million Slavs and nobody in the world knows you did it. So, like, you look, okay, why do people kill people in a genocide, we'll say? And there's different reasons. So, like, in the Cultural Revolution in China, they wanted people to get on board with cultural and intellectual ideas. And if you're not going to get on board, you're out. And then what's left is, in this situation, the claim is that Germany needs Lebensraum for its colonists, living room for its colonists. They need to get the people who are there out, right? Is it easier to move people or kill them?
You're still going to have to move the bodies.
Right, just move them.
Yeah.
Because people will move themselves if the jackboots come in. Right. And they're a little bit afraid. People will also move themselves with incentives. People will also be moved by force. But the danger of even if you have no morals, if you have no morals and you're like, I don't mind killing them, it's harder to get away with that. Yeah. So just from all practical perspectives, this is nonsense.
Right.
Just move them. Just say, hey, place in Russia is now yours.
Right.
I don't know. Like,
you got to leave in this number of days, or we're going to force you.
Right.
The place is going to be empty.
Yeah, it's going to be empty. Right. Yeah. And even if they burn down their houses and stuff, Germans will build new houses. We don't care. Right. Go ahead and burn your stuff down. Go ahead. Yeah. We'll rebuild it because we want better engineering anyways in our houses than your little...
And our style and culture and all
that.
Oh,
that's actually true. They would come in. Yeah. Yeah, but they still want the wood and stuff if necessary. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I'm just saying the whole thing's stupid.
Okay, yeah. Crazy video. How long was it? You remember?
It's 30... It's 30 to 35 minutes.
Wow, I'm glad you summarized. That sounds like a rough watch.
So let me give them the schedule.
Okay.
For this week.
Sure.
On Wednesday, we have a special video for you. You got to watch it to see. On Thursday, we're going to do this exact video, but forget that guy's YouTube video. We're going to throw some hypotheticals in there. It's not going to be Churchill crashing in a plane.
Right.
Because I don't want to see an ending where Churchill crashes in a plane and that's how history has changed.
Yeah.
I want to see other stuff, and I'm not giving a hint at that because I kind of almost did a second ago when I blundered into how our ending would go, which we haven't fully discussed right now. And so on Thursday, you're going to get to see a more realistic version, and I'm open to criticism on Thursday.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also one of those things that really isn't a right or wrong, unless we're totally misrepresenting the German people, let's say, or something like that.
Or if we say this small event could have changed 9 million things, it couldn't. It would have changed a little bit the course.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll get to it though.
Okay. So kind of a different kind of week. Hopefully you're enjoying this. I'm excited about these videos, and it's I love thinking about this stuff because I always think about like what the future could be, and this kind of goes that same route. I'm just thinking about what is possible. So hopefully you're enjoying this, and join us for the other two videos. It's going to be very different, and join in the fantasy with us, and hopefully we'll see you then.